Hello and welcome to Aravaipa Trail Talk 57. Today we're talking to Patrick Reagan and Stefanie Flippin ahead of this year's 2022 USATF 100-mile road championship taking place Friday in Henderson, Nevada at the Jackpot Ultras. Steep Life Media will be live streaming this race, coming to you all day Friday. Here with Patrick Reagan and Stefanie Flippin. Very excited to be going into the Jackpot 100 mile, which is serving as this year's USATF 100 mile road national championship. Both of them raced this event last year. It was rescheduled. Was it rescheduled to April or May? April, and the event takes place in Henderson, Nevada, which is a suburb of Las Vegas, and it was hot out. I hear that it was around 93 for a high that day, and yet both of you still ran in the 14-hour range, which is incredible. But what makes me excited is it sounds like both of you are in very good shape this year, rolling into the normal February date, which right now it's looking like a high of around 68 degrees, which I think sounds a lot more pleasant. How are both of you doing today?
Yeah, we've both had a pretty good build-up, and I feel like I've seen all of it only because I'm working with Steph now as our coach. So we not only had a chance, like you were saying earlier, Jamil, to do a little training camp down here in Georgia where we kind of tested and see where we were at over the course of 40 miles. But we both had a really smooth build-up. And knock on wood here, we're a few days to go, but neither of us had any injuries leading into this one. I feel like my build was personally a lot smoother. Last year, I was dealing with some calf issues surrounding Carbon X2. And this year, I had probably my cleanest build up since 2019. And I've been feeling fantastic heading into the race, just like things have gone swimmingly and, feeling like the fitness is there and excited to be racing again. So.
Yeah, likewise. Like Pat mentioned, it was awesome to be able to, train together, kind of see and kind of put together all the mileage and workouts, that Pat's been giving me. Just from a personal life standpoint for me, I feel like my stress levels are a lot lower this year in 2022. In 2021, around, the time that Jackpot went last year, it was still super stressful, just trying to get my medical practice back on board, following, the year that we had in 2020. So that's been really great for me to just feel like, okay, like I can focus a little bit more just on my training, less on, all the business and like financial side of things. And yeah, I've been feeling great coming off the 40-mile race that Pat and I lined up for. I feel like my speed is a lot more dialed in than it was last year, honestly, just because I have a lot more kind of like emotional energy to really focus. So excited.
Awesome. Yeah, let's maybe take a step back and learn a little bit more about each of you, and then we can talk about Jackpot specifically. So starting with you, Stefanie, you live in Evergreen, Colorado, which is west of the Denver area. And it looks like, I was checking out your ultra sign up a little bit. You have run some very fast 100-milers, Tunnel Hill, first place, 2 years in a row. So a 15:55 back in 2020, and then lowered that to a 14:04, which is incredible. And you also have the win and third overall at Jackpot last year. Maybe just tell us a little bit more about your running background and what made you want to go and take a shot at the road 100-mile championship?
Yeah. So, I don't have like the typical pedigree of most like elite or professional level runners. I actually didn't run in high school or college. I kind of grew up playing other sports. I really got into running and more of like the competitive side as like a stress reliever when I was in medical school. And that was right around like 2011, so about 10 years ago now. I was going to medical school in Chicago. My husband and I kind of dove right into the Chicago Marathon, local, Chicago area races. And then my husband was like, this road scene's fun, but, there's this whole like trail and ultra world. So we like kind of classic ultra runner. I mean, we were just stacking the races, probably with not enough time to train because we were in school. But yeah, and I was really in like the trail world for a long time. I didn't actually return to road racing until like 2018. I spent all of 2019 like really just focusing on speed and whacked like, I don't know, like an hour and a half off my road marathon, logged like a 36 flat 10K. And then 2020 hit, and kind of just screwed with everyone's racing plans. I'd gotten a little bit burnt out on the road marathon, chasing that Olympic trials qualifying standard. So yeah, in 2020 I was like, you know what, I'm going to return to what I love, and that's the 100-mile distance. So I took a stab at Tunnel Hill, and I just was like, all right, like let's go for this, for the faster 100-mile times.
That's awesome. And yeah,
Yeah.
what made you want to go for the championship? Is that something that's been on your mind for a while, or what
Yeah.
appealed to you about it, the flat course as well?
Yeah, I think after running Tunnel Hill in 2020 and 15:55, I just I knew I could identify tons of gaps in my training. It was the first time I'd run 100 in like 2.5 years, so a lot of it was like mental training too. And it actually kind of worked out with the postponement last year of the national championships because it fit really well. It gave me a nice, good time to recover from Tunnel Hill in November. Take time off during the holidays. Yeah, and my husband was really like, you know what, like, why don't you sign up for this? See how much time you can whack off, your 100-mile. So that's really what drew me.
That's awesome. How about you, Pat? I know people are pretty familiar with your background with Javelina and everything, but what appeals to you about the road championship, or where you're at with your running career right now?
Yeah. So I got started on the roads, primarily at the USATF 100K championships, rolling it into comrades, experimenting around at Ultra Visan. So I was really no stranger to roads, dirt roads. And I think I extrapolated and started to see a little bit of trail with Javelina over the course of 2017 to 19. Shifted the focus a little bit to Western states to try my hand there and see how I stacked up against some of the best trail runners in the world, which was really fun. But there was definitely something that was drawing me back to the roads. Like I knew it was where my passion was. And much like you, Jamil, like I knew it was what I could do and would have the most fun doing directly out my door. So the focus of 2021 into 2022 was really supposed to be, the trajectory towards both more road championships, USATF events, trying to re-qualify for like a world's 100K team, which didn't happen in 2020, unfortunately. And really keying in on how fast could I possibly go for 100 miles around about probably my peak, like around 35 years old. I wanted to see what's possible for me on the track, what's possible for me at, USATF 100-mile championships on the road at Brazos Bend. Events like this have always been really attractive for me just because it's what I have the easiest access to train for directly out my door. So signing up for events like this year and the Dome and Spartathlon were kind of no-brainers for me.
Nice. Stefanie, could you touch on the course at Jackpot? I know it's held at a park. Could you guys walk us through? I know I actually didn't even mention it yet. We will be doing a live stream of this race this year, which is very exciting. Yeah. So make sure all of you are subscribed to the Steep Life Media YouTube channel. We are going to have a full 16-hour live stream where we'll cover both Patrick and Stefanie with their races. But walk us through the course. What is it like as a runner in this race?
Yeah, so I believe the park is called Cornerstone Park. Like Jamil mentioned, Henderson, just a suburb of Vegas. I believe the course is Pat, 1.18 miles, right around there.
Yeah, you're right on 1718, something right around that.
Yeah, right around there. It's predominantly paved, like concrete. I think there's like a small asphalt section. And then there's kind of as you come around and make your final, last quarter mile or so for that loop, it turns into like a bit of like crushed gravel. And there's like a small incline coming back up once you hit the timing mat. But yeah, it's a really fast course. Honestly, like last year, I never really felt like it was, I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but it never really felt like that monotonous to me. Maybe it's because like it's a, a little bit over a mile. It's not quite like, a track race or something, but I never really got sick of the course. It's easy to get into a nice flow.
You feel the same, Patrick?
Yeah, I think it's the opposite of your channel here. It's like run flat, stay low. Maybe I
Exactly.
know
I'll have to pull one
that's
of
one of
those
the
shirts out for
Aravaipa.
the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a run flat, stay low race, and I love it. I remember Chris Brown last year calling this course 85 laps to glory, and
Yeah.
there's something special to me about repeating the same loop over and over again on these flat surfaces. And Zach Bitter has always talked a lot about how it's fascinating to see if you propel yourself along all day. There's no hiking up, there's no bombing down.
Yeah.
What's possible for you? And the intrinsic desire to do these races, you have to be really interested in seeing what your own momentum and kind of your own force of will can take you to on a course like this. That's the most fascinating part for me. I mean, I love this style of race. Like I've always loved criterion style races, and I train a lot on loops like this. So yeah, I feel like we've done a good job to simulate that in training.
Yeah, what does training look like for each of you going into a race like this?
Yeah, Pat can definitely chat more about this too, but I feel like, for this training block, we really dialed in on, probably like marathon effort, 50K effort, 100K effort in terms of speed. Definitely kept a lot of strides in there to maintain that kind of turnover, which is a lot, like I mentioned, it's just a lot stronger and a lot more speed than I went into last year's championships with. And I feel so grateful to have been able to stack, multiple long run weekends without injury. We definitely peaked around 40 miles, but leading into that, it was like, 26 miles, 28 miles, 30, 32, 40, 26. I feel super, super solid about that. And multiple like moderate long run days stacked in there too.
Yeah, quite similar for me. I mean, I usually do most of what I would prescribe another athlete like Stefanie to do for a championship like this. So Nicole Manette's build was a little different from me and Stefanie, where she was coming off Desert Solstice and doing 100 miles there, so she had a little less time. But given that I had so much time, my last race being Western States leading into this, I had a lot more time to do a more concentrated build for 12 to 14 weeks and taper more like 21 days out from the race. So I stacked probably the most 30-mile runs within a short period of time I've stacked since 2019 and feel great about that. To kind of extrapolate a little bit more on what the nuts and bolts of our training's like, we, of course, like Stefanie said, concentrate a lot on the half marathon kind of perceived exertion work for quality sessions. But what we did a lot with our long runs was we practice our, exact race nutrition protocol, especially working on metabolizing the right number of calories and the mediums that worked for us, like in different temperatures and weather. So we got really intricate there with, hey, like this fuel is working well for me at these temperatures. Late in a run, I'm finding that this fuel is hard to consume, but I'm finding I shift well to sports drink and off of gel there. So we experimented a lot, and that's a big part of training as well. Like, I believe strongly in making sure that your nutrition's 100% dialed, that you have everything laid out there for race day. So,
Yeah.
yeah, on top of the quality work, I mean, I think that work's just as important.
Yeah, totally agree. Like, I'm just like sitting here, the past few days I've been packing for the race, and it's like, there's no, like, the difference between like me this year and then last year is like, there's no guesswork, like with my nutrition. Like Pat has helped me get so dialed in. My husband's always, on the bike with me. It's dialed down to the exact like milligrams of sodium even. I got my salt, or I'm sorry, my sweat tested earlier in the season, just because last year with the championships being so warm, that was just really critical to me to get that dialed in. And like I said, packing, it's like, all right, like I know I'm going to need X amount of this, X amount of that. And there's really no guesswork going on, it always feels good to go into a big race like that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned nutrition because I was just going to ask about that. What what has been working for each of you? Are you both following a similar protocol? And how many calories per hour are you shooting for?
Yeah, you go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, sure. So last year, me and my coach Ian Sharman, like we looked a lot at like what I did last year, what was maybe too much on a course like this that wasn't incredibly demanding, and we discussed a lot more. Hey, let's back that off a little bit and go a little bit more by feel. It doesn't have to be so rigorous in terms of the exact number of calories per hour. Go more what's calling to you. And I found when I was trying to jam more like 400 calories per hour on this flat of a course last year, it was a bit taxing. Like I could do that at Western States, but given that the course didn't have as much climbing, I think my demands calorically per hour were a little less. And the pace was also a little hotter than it would be on a course like Western States. So on a course like this, I'm going to be closer to 350 per hour probably. But there are definitely going to be hours where I'm at 325, and there are definitely going to be hours where I'm at 400, depending on whether I'm in the heat of the day or not, and depending on how late in the run I am. The later in the run I go, like I tend to just really shift towards 400 calories per hour. And I also gravitate a lot more towards like Goose Droop waffles and coconut water, potato chips. And I shift off of Goo Octane sports drink kind of later and later that I go in the run. Whereas most of like the heat of the day, I'm primarily on Goo Octane sports drink and potato chips. So
nice.
Yeah, similarly. I feel like earlier on in the race, I'm primarily like liquid calories. I'm probably a smaller human than Pat, but like for all the female listeners out there, like my sweet spot is 350 calories per hour. That's exactly what I practice in training. That's honestly what I take in for like a road marathon too. I have like no embarrassment saying that. And so spring energy gels are also a big staple, in addition to, like a sports drink that's also like around 2 to 250 calories, like per 18 ounces or so. Like Pat mentioned, as the day gets a little bit warmer, I feel like I do have to follow cravings, get some like chips in and just kind of like rinse the mouth of that sugar taste. But yeah, like I said, 350 is basically what I always try to stay at. That's where I feel my best. I credit that to like my past like really strong performances. It's just that kind of steady flow of calories.
That's awesome. Great information. Let's shift to this year's field. I'm sure you've taken a look. Maybe you haven't. I'm not sure. But I do want to talk. Last year, what I thought was so impressive, we had, it looks like 4 of the top 7 finishers were women, and they were places 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 7th, which I think is amazing. And it was such a close race last year. It looks like, Stefanie, you had Camille and Micah both right on your heels. I think you might have passed Camille late in the race. How did that play out last year?
Last year, I was coming in as an unsponsored runner. I was definitely like the quote, I guess, dark horse, and so I really had to manage, honestly, like feeling like, okay, do I even belong in this field? Like, this pace I'm holding. So last year was all about like blinders up, and running my own race. The conditions were so challenging that really it was going to be like, the win was going to be up for grabs for anyone that just kind of played things smart. So I honestly, like, I wasn't even paying attention to where the other women were. Like I had a general idea. But with this loop type course, it's also kind of challenging to know if someone's pulled off, if they're like using the restroom. Like last year it was so hot. They had like this like outdoor shower, you didn't really know like if anyone had pulled off to do that or if they were still ahead of you. And my husband's my crew chief. He always knows like when to tell me something and when to not. And I think him, as well as like Chris Brown and a few other people, held off pretty late in the game before they told me like, all right, like you're currently like first woman and you'll probably like make the men's podium too. I don't think I realized that until maybe mile 70. And I was shocked. I was like, what? I've just been blinders up this whole time, just trucking along. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that was like, I just did the running up for air 12-hour, and it's the same kind of thing when you have that looped course over and over. Like I couldn't have told you what place I was in, and then it ended. Right. I was like, oh, you were second. Cool. No idea.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah, have you guys looked at some of the entrants this year? It looks like a pretty exciting and interesting list.
yeah.
If you haven't, I'd love to go over a couple names. Do you have any insight on that, Pat?
Yeah, the list is super deep. Both genders here. I'm
Mhm.
really excited to tussle with a few of the guys. I've been like texting back and forth with Arlen Glick a bit since his run at Javelina, and just getting really excited that we get a chance to challenge and push each other. I don't really communicate much with Mark Hammond other than when I see him at Western States or something like that, but it's going to be really fun to run against Mark. I know Alex Nichols is in the race. Um, I think Raj Paul was maybe supposed to run at some stage, but is not on the entrance list. And then I know there are definitely some guys that don't have a ton of 100-mile experience, like Kalen Khan, I believe is how
Yep.
you pronounce his name. He's a very fast 50K runner, and it should be super interesting to see, what he's capable of for 100 miles. Um, I can speak to the women's field as well, just because like I work with Steph, Nicole, and Whitney. But I know Camille's quite fit and looks healthy as well, and I think the women's field is super strong, along with some great masters runners like Loretta. Yeah, so it looks like a really strong field, and I think this kind of course, at least on speaking a little bit more to the men's side, we have such a diversity of different types of athletes, both really good runners from say Run Rabbit Run events like Leadville, guys like Alex Nichols who've been second at Western States. How do they translate to road running for this long on a really repetitive loop? Is it enjoyable for them? I know Mark really crosses, he does really well at Desert Solstice, really well at Jackpot, and also really well at States. So he seems super diverse, but I'm interested to see what kind of day Alex has, as I think he's such a smart runner. Like, you remove a bunch of variables, and seeing a guy like him perform should be really fun.
Yeah, I think that was to me one of the most surprising names on the list, seeing Alex on here. It's like
Hmm.
I did not see that coming, a guy like him, but I mean, we just saw David Laney at Desert Solstice.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think you put a guy that is, he can crush Western States, you take away all those variables and
Yeah.
they can knock a couple hours off their PR. It's pretty incredible to see.
Hmm.
Totally. And I think Alex is a cross country All American. He's got experience running well into the 24s for 5 miles on grass. And I mean, he's got a pedigree, and he understands how to prepare college athletes as a collegiate coach too. Right. So it'll be fascinating to see, okay, like how much of that did he apply to his training?
Yeah, definitely. And how about the women's field, Stephanie? Do you have any insights on that for us?
Yeah, like I'm really, really looking forward to lining up with Camille again, as well as Nicole. This will be the first time I'll be racing with Nicole. So she's such a strong 100K runner, so strong on the roads for sub ultra distances too. I just so highly respect both of them. I've said it before, but I credit Camille to setting the bar so high that, like, if she hadn't done that, I don't think that I would have even be like dreaming of these times, and hoping to like put that 13, maybe even a 12 in front of like my PR at some point. So it's always so exciting to line up with these women. When I lined up last year, I remember, I turned to Micah and I was like, I really got into these, wanting to get into these fast hundreds, like because of you and following along in your career. And last year I didn't go in with like a specific time goal. It was really just like, I wanted to see like how far and how hard all of us women could push ourselves, and just see how, I just wanted to get the best out of myself. And this weekend is going to be that similar opportunity to do so with all this talent.
That's great. Yeah, it seems like even you go down the list, there's currently, for the folks out there, this is part of the Jackpot Ultras weekend. So there's actually a lot of different races going on. I think anywhere from a 6-hour up to a 72-hour. And the 72-hour starts the same day as the 100-mile. And they're the only other distance out there while you are all racing. And the
Yeah.
other ones start the next day. And they actually have a longer course than you. I think it's maybe
Yeah.
2.5 miles, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's like there's more like gravel. It's like not all like smooth. I mean, I'm not going to say technical by any means, but yeah, I don't think it's quite as like smooth for that other
Excuse me.
end.
I was out there with Ken, the race director, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago. We were walking the course for getting ready for the live stream. and we got to see it kind of doubles back, and you'll actually see some of them head on a couple spots of the course. But all in all, I think there's going to be around 400 for the weekend, and there are, I think, 76 registered for the USATF 100 mile. Yeah, it is kind of a bummer to see Raj Paul, I guess, not end up running it this year. It'd be great to see him at some point toe the line. I'm sure he would do really well out there. But yeah, there's a lot of Masters runners as well, names that I've noticed from past 24-hour teams. You got like Philip McCarthy out there. Like you were saying, Loretta's out there. There's just so many. Roy Perung, it looks like. Tracy Thomas. A lot of names that have been out there for a long time doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's what I love most about an event like Jackpot Ultra Running Festival with multiple distances is you get so many people that are like, I'm going to go through it for a fast age group 50. I'm going for my first 72. I want to see what's possible for 48 hours, right? Like Pete Kostelnik was here last year. Just seeing, hey, like I want to get a good idea of where I'm at for 24, have some fun, come out here, do something different, run a new event. And I think, I think they put on a great race. Like Ken's been so nice and generous and, checked in very often. They're the type of race directors that just ping you and say, hey, how have you been? Not, hey, are you running my race this year? But hey, here's this cool thing I thought of you, right? Like I know Ken sent both me and Raj a calendar this year of a picture from the championship last year, just said, hey, there's a dozen of them, give them to your family, right? And, they're very thoughtful and you can see that, if you've ever been thinking about running this race or you want a break from the wintertime weather wherever you live, like this is a cool race to come challenge yourself and do something new. Because one thing I'll say about criterion races is it's a different type of mental challenge that you have running a race like this. It's not a beautiful, point single track trail. This takes a different type of intrinsic motivation to continue onward. So, I definitely suggest people come and experiment and try something new with a race like this.
Do you have anything to add on that, Stefanie?
Well, I was just kind of thinking just kind of looking at the entrant list and then kind of seeing what other, runners are also planning for later in the year. Obviously this type of race is so different, than a trail 100. But at least like for me, I feel like I've been kind of using these style of races to garner my speed and just kind of hone in, like what Pat mentioned, like it's a different type of, intrinsic motivation and mental strength. And I fully plan on, transitioning over and back into the trail world. And I just feel like the experience that I have gathered, just even training for these types of races, is really going to serve me well. And I see Camille's obviously going to be racing Western. I think this is a great race, or a race similar to this, to just kind of hone in on those kind of different strengths that you may not, ever get with that continuous running, at something like Western,
Will both of you have crew out there helping you out for like quick transitions throughout the day? I know it does make it convenient. You don't have to carry a whole lot with you each lap since you're coming around every 1.15, 1.2 miles.
Yeah, we'll have a pretty big crew out there. This is our first kind of big team event of the year with 5 of the athletes that I coach, including myself, competing. So we've got a few other members of our squad, like Jake Jackson and Randy Taylor, are both coming out. Chris Brown's coming and helping the crew, as well as like Barry and Jen Sterling, who pretty much always come and crew me at hundreds. Some of my buddies from Texas. So we'll have a huge crew out there, and we plan on doing very fast transitions. So the recommended is for each athlete to have 2 ice bandanas. So you can basically never break stride, just come through, grab it, tie it on while you're moving. Same with bottles. Like if things go swimmingly, like you don't need to break stride, at least for the first 100K. I mean, you shouldn't have to. If things are going really well in an event like this, like you may not have to break stride, kind of like your brother at Solstice, Jamil.
I was just going to say,
maybe restroom breaks. Yeah, like
minimizing that downtime is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my main recommendation for anybody that's thinking about running or is running, I think one mistake I made last year was maybe too many stops. Like carry the whole handheld.
Yeah.
Maybe only stop every hour. Know that you have everything you need on person for maybe your 4 or 5 or 6 loops, as opposed to stopping on an extremely regular basis. I found myself getting really distracted with, oh geez, do I have enough to get around this loop? Just have the full bottle.
Yeah.
Or at least say like, yeah, I'm not going to need to stop, but every third loop. That's going to, I think, help me and be a huge advantage. Just kind of streamline things a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, like last year, I feel like I've come so far in terms of like my husband's always like my primary crew, and my family comes out for it too. But my husband Mitchell and I have just gotten so dialed in. Whereas last year it was like Pat mentioned, it's really like almost just tempting because you're like, oh, I'm going to see you in another mile. We'll just figure it out then. I feel like Pat mentioned, for anyone listening that's kind of like, oh, thinking about these types of looped courses, it's been helpful for me, obviously, to plan beforehand. Like I said, like there's just no guesswork with fueling. Like it's this gel, on every 40 minutes, this bottle, every 45 minutes. But also like when you're out there on the course, I found it really helpful as I was like, okay, hitting the half mile mark. I'm like, okay, let's already be thinking like, okay, is there anything I need to grab, so that I'm not coming up on my crew and then being like, oh shoot, I forgot I wanted this. Oh, well, I'll just get it on the next loop. But that can start to like pile on and then you just feel stressed. So yeah, just kind of thinking ahead. And like Pat said, just minimizing those stops. I think I like stopped around like 100K just to like smash some mashed potatoes. But yeah, always the goal, and very possible to not have to at all on these courses besides bathroom breaks. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you, I know Nick has been working on his negative split strategy. Do you have kind of like a pacing plan? Are you trying to run pretty even splits or maybe even a slight positive, or you think about that?
Yeah, I think for me still like a slight positive is the most realistic in a 100-mile race that's really competitive and pointy on the front end. But I don't think you necessarily need to waver more than 10 or 15 seconds per mile. So I expect a race like this to be no slower than 7-minute pace, like through the 100K mark with the kind of weather we're going to have. I don't know if I'll be directly on that. Like I would rather hunt a little bit more, and at least from a perceived exertion perspective, even if it's closer to 7:15, find myself in really good position at 100K. I'm going to really just see what the day gives me personally. I mean, I have a feeling I'm in close to PR shape, but you really just have to see what the day gives you almost every single time, what your gut's giving you. Are there any issues that come up along the way, like acute problems, injury problems? But this is the kind of course that's give or take, probably just as fast as Tunnel Hill, and we're going to have great weather. So we'll just kind of have to see what the day gives us.
Yeah, similarly, like I'm honestly just excited to be racing like with people because I love Tunnel Hill. I love that course so much. But the past couple years I ran it, even in 2021, I just found myself in no man's land. So that's just challenging and as hard, and as focused as you're staying. And I ran that solo without pacers in November. It's just tough. Like when you're in the dark by yourself, we all know what that feels like. And you're just like willing yourself to stay on pace, but without someone to chase or, even to like, just, if you're being chased, it's just challenging. At least for me, it was a couple months ago. So I'm excited to have that, like, additional motivation. I definitely fell off my pace plan at Tunnel Hill. Just like I said, just being alone. So looking forward to being definitely much more even. I don't know if I'm quite there yet for a negative split, but that would be freaking awesome at some point.
Yeah, you can kind of get complacent sometimes, I think, being all alone out there.
Yeah, it's tough.
Especially from like, I always find from like 80 to 90, I get really complacent. And almost any 100 I run, like even like the run I'm probably most proud of at Javelina, Jamil, like 2019, just given that like I was on my own for 100K, then I had good pacers for the ladder. But I can even remember telling Eric, hey man, let's just enjoy it. Come on, let's enjoy it, man. You're in the pain cave, and I struggle to push there. Like that's kind of like, I mean, I don't mind putting that out there on a platter and advertising that to others. Like it's easy if you're alone to be complacent 80 to 90.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling this is going to be the kind of race, like two people minimum are going to be battling all the way through 90. I think. Like, I
Yeah.
think both genders, like, there's no question that like this race is going to be a battle very late into it.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm so excited to be out there and witnessing it in person. I think we're going to start to wrap things up. Do you either of you have anything else you want to share about this year's Jackpot? I know both of you are probably heading out there in a couple days to kind of get acclimated and all set and dialed.
Not from me. What about you, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to see all sorts of folks in the ultra running community. I mean, I've seen Stefanie recently, but it's always just a great reunion to see people. So don't be a stranger. I mean, come up and say hello to us. I mean, we'll be definitely they will be at the pre-athlete meeting where there'll be kind of like a little press conference sort of deal. So don't be strangers, come say hello to us and ask questions about the race or just come hang out. We'd love to chat with you. And if you're running, we'll see you 85 times.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't hesitate to, for all the crews and family and friends, like last year was so awesome. I really needed that crowd for those last 10 miles, and I really appreciate everyone sticking around. Like I vividly remember Raj, running back and forth on course to be like, a personal cheerleader. Like the community is so awesome. Like no matter how any one day's out there like shakes out, the crowd was like electric last year. So I'm sure it'll be like even better this year.
Yeah, if you're in the Vegas area, come on out Friday night. It's gonna be great. I do also want to give each of you a chance to thank any sponsors you have, or if you want to, I know Pat, you have your coaching service. Give us a heads up on where to follow you guys and any thanks you want to give.
Yeah, so first and foremost, like huge thanks to Hoka, my title sponsor, Goo Energy Labs, Ultra Aspire, Dry Max Socks. I could go on and on, with accessory sponsors. But you can find me at Patrick Reagan Running on Instagram. And then my coaching services website where you can book coaching is www.patrickreaganrunning.com. And you can also just email me at patrickreaganrunning@gmail.com.
Yeah, likewise, I want to give a huge thanks. This is my first year running with my primary sponsor, Hoka. It's been the greatest opportunity. Just so grateful for the belief from them, as well as my sponsors of Spring Energy and also Ultra Aspire. I am also a running coach. I lead an awesome, very diverse team with Lift Run Perform. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at Stefanie and Flippin. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And yeah, one more reminder for everyone that's tuned in, be sure to subscribe to the Steep Life Media YouTube channel. We will have multiple live broadcasts. So Patrick was talking about that Thursday night athlete intro. We will be doing about an hour live stream there. You can kind of tune in. We'll talk to some different athletes right on site. And then Saturday morning, we'll be there all the way through the top women's finishers Friday night. And then I believe we're going to come back live for the start of the Jackpot Ultras races on Saturday and kind of wrap things up. So we're really excited to be out there. It's our first time doing a whole live stream for a non-Aravaipa race. So we're really excited to bring that to you and watch these performances firsthand. So thank you to both of you for taking the time to come on, and we'll see you soon.